My fiancée thought she was clever, texting her ex during our engagement party. "Can't wait to see you tonight." She didn't realize her message synced to my iPad. I just raised my glass. Hours later, she found out the party was her goodbye. The party was in full swing, exactly as I'd planned. We had about 100 people packed into the backyard of my house, the one I bought and renovated myself. Caterers were circling with trays of champagne and appetizers. A string quartet was playing something classy in the corner, and my fiancée Megan was glowing. She was the center of attention, holding court with her bridesmaids, showing off the ridiculously large diamond on her finger. From the outside, it was a perfect picture, a celebration of our future. I was playing the part of the proud host, shaking hands, laughing with relatives, making sure everyone's glass was full. But on the inside, I was just waiting. About an hour into the party, I excused myself to go inside, supposedly to check on the music playlist. The iPad we were using was connected to the sound system sitting on the kitchen counter. It was also, as I knew, synced to Megan's iMessage account. It was a convenience we'd set up ages ago. Tonight, it was a liability for her. As I walked up to the counter, the screen lit up with a new message notification. It wasn't the content that caught my eye first. It was the name Derek, her ex-boyfriend. The one she'd sworn up and down was completely out of her life. A toxic chapter she had closed long before she met me. My heart started a slow, heavy drumbeat in my chest. I opened the message. It was a reply to one she had sent just a few minutes earlier from the middle of her own engagement party. Her message was at the top. "Megan, this is so boring. Can't wait to get out of here. Just hold on a little longer. Is tonight still on?" "Absolutely. Can't wait to see you tonight." I stared at the screen for a full minute. The sounds of the party outside fading into a distant buzz. It wasn't shock I felt. It was a weird sense of confirmation, like finding the final piece of a puzzle I didn't even know I was solving. All the little things from the past year suddenly clicked into place. The secretive phone calls. The nights she was out with the girls and came home smelling of a cologne that wasn't mine. The way her eyes would glaze over when I talked about our future. A hot white wave of anger washed over me so intense it almost made me dizzy. I wanted to smash the iPad against the wall. I wanted to storm outside and drag her in front of everyone and expose her for the liar she was. But I didn't. That would be messy, emotional. And this situation didn't call for emotion. It called for precision. I took a deep breath. I looked out the window at her. She was laughing, throwing her head back. Not a care in the world. She had no idea her entire world was about to be systematically dismantled. I walked back out into the party, a perfect smile plastered on my face. I went straight to the bar and got a fresh glass of whiskey. Then I found my best man, my brother, and told him 2 things. To get the catering captain, and to be ready for a show. Update 1. The performance that followed was worthy of an award. I spent the next hour working the crowd like a politician. I talked to Megan's parents, telling them how happy I was to be joining their family. I complimented her mother's dress. I discussed business with her father, a pompous old guy, who always looked at me like I was something he'd scraped off his shoe. He owned a string of car dealerships and had never approved of his daughter marrying a guy who'd built his own software company from scratch instead of inheriting a business. Tonight, he was all smiles, basking in the reflected glory of a party he wasn't paying for. I found Megan by the outdoor fireplace, surrounded by her giggling bridesmaids. I put my arm around her, kissed her, and told her she looked beautiful. She gave me a quick, distracted peck on the cheek and immediately turned back to her friends. I was an accessory, a prop in her perfect engagement fantasy. The whole time, my plan was solidifying. I had a quiet word with the catering captain. I told him there was a change of plans for the end of the night. The expensive party favors we'd ordered, custom-engraved silver keychains, were to be held back. Instead, I gave him a box of cheap gag gift plastic rings from my office. I told him to have his staff hand them out as people were leaving. He looked confused, but the size of the tip I'd already given him ensured he didn't ask questions. Next, I went to the lead musician in the string quartet. I handed him a $100 bill and made a special request for the last song of the night. He raised an eyebrow at my choice, but agreed. Finally, at around 9, as the sun was setting and the garden lights were beginning to glow, I knew it was time. I grabbed a champagne flute and stepped onto the small raised patio that served as a stage. I tapped my glass with a knife, the clear ringing sound cutting through the chatter. A hush fell over the party. "If I could have everyone's attention for a moment," I began, my voice steady and confident. Megan looked up at me, a proud, possessive smile on her face. She thought this was for her, and in a way it was. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate with us." I continued raising my glass. "This has been an incredible evening surrounded by family and friends. When I decided to ask Megan to be my wife, I thought I knew what love was. I thought it was about building a future together, about loyalty, and about trusting someone with your entire heart. I paused, letting the words hang in the air. I looked directly at Megan, whose smile was starting to falter. But I've learned recently that people can have very different definitions of those words. For some, a future is just a temporary arrangement. Loyalty is just a suggestion. And trust is just an opportunity to be exploited. A nervous murmur rippled through the crowd. Megan's face had gone pale. Her father was looking at me with a thunderous expression. Some of you might think this is a strange time to be having these revelations, I said, my voice hardening. But clarity can come at the most unexpected moments. For instance, it can come when you see a message from your fiancée to her ex-boyfriend, a message sent from her own engagement party that says, "Can't wait to see you tonight." A collective gasp went through the crowd. Megan looked like she had been turned to stone. I pulled out my phone, which I had screenshotted the message to, and held it up. "So, I'd like to propose a new toast," I announced, my voice booming through the silent backyard. "Not to our future, but to my future. A future that is free of lies and betrayal. And to Megan, I hope your meeting with Derek tonight is everything you hoped for. Because this party isn't an engagement party anymore. It's your goodbye party. The engagement is off." I drank the champagne in one go. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, as if on cue, the string quartet began to play the song I had requested. Bye Bye by Nink. Update 2. The chaos that erupted was immediate and spectacular. Megan's mother let out a sound like a deflating balloon. Her father, his face purple with rage, started pushing his way through the stunned crowd towards me. "You have no right," he bellowed. "You will not humiliate my daughter." I didn't even flinch. My brother, who is about 6 and taller and 100 pounds heavier than Megan's dad, simply stepped in front of me. "I think you should leave," he said, his voice dangerously calm. My own parents came rushing over, my mom looking horrified, my dad looking grimly satisfied. "What is going on?" my mom asked. I just showed her the screenshot on my phone. Her expression shifted from confusion to cold fury in a heartbeat. Megan was now in the center of a huddle of her bridesmaids, sobbing hysterically. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of pure, unadulterated rage. She was screaming that I was a psycho, that I had set her up, that her phone had been hacked. The lies were so frantic, so transparent that it was almost pathetic. I walked over to her, the crowd parting before me like the Red Sea. "You need to leave my house now, Megan," I said. "This is my party," she shrieked. "You can't kick me out of my own party." "You're right. It was your party." I corrected her. It was paid for with my money, hosted at my house, and catered by people I hired. And now I'm ending it. "Your invitation has been revoked." Her father made another lunch, but my brother and a few of my cousins formed a solid wall. The party was effectively over. Guests were grabbing their things and leaving, a mixture of shock, pity, and morbid excitement on their faces. As they left, the catering staff, following my instructions, handed each of them a cheap plastic ring. Megan's family was the last to go. As they were gathering her things, her mother turned to me, her eyes full of venom. "You will pay for this," she hissed. "We will take you for everything you have." "Good luck with that," I said. "The engagement is off." "That means the conditional gift of the ring is now my property again. I expect to have it back by tomorrow, or my lawyer will be in touch." The look on her face when she realized I was legally right was priceless. The cleanup was surreal. My family and a few close friends stayed to help. We threw away the flowers, packed up the leftover food, and transformed the backyard from a party venue back into a home. My home. The next morning, I woke up to a barrage of texts and voicemails. Megan, her parents, her friends, all of them, alternating between threats and tearful attempts at manipulation. I deleted them all without listening. Around noon, my doorbell rang. It was a courier. He handed me a small box. Inside was the engagement ring. There was no note. The financial fallout was swift. I cancelled the joint account. I removed her from my credit cards. I called every wedding vendor and one by one cancelled our contracts. I lost a fortune in non-refundable deposits, but I considered it the best money I had ever spent. Megan's attempt to play the victim failed miserably. The story of what had happened at the party, complete with the NSYNC soundtrack and the plastic ring party favors, spread like a wildfire. Too many people had been there. Too many people had seen the screenshot. She had no narrative to spin where she didn't come out looking like a fool. She and her family tried to escalate things, of course. A week after the party, I got a letter from their lawyer. It was a masterpiece of legal nonsense, claiming I had caused her emotional distress and public humiliation, and demanding a 6F figure settlement to make her whole. My lawyer's response was a single page. It included a copy of the screenshot, a list of the guests who had witnessed the event, and a polite inquiry as to whether they would like to proceed with a lawsuit that would require Meghan to testify under oath about her relationship with Derek. We never heard from that lawyer again. Final update, it's been 8 months since the goodbye party. The silence from Meghan and her family has been absolute. After their legal threats evaporated, they seem to just disappear. Here's what I've pieced together from mutual acquaintances. Derek, the ex-boyfriend, was not, in fact, waiting to sweep her off her feet. He was a married man, a fact Meghan had conveniently forgotten to mention. His wife found out about the affair shortly after our party. Apparently, someone who was there knew someone who knew her. His life imploded, and he wanted nothing more to do with Meghan or her drama. Meghan's parents, after the public humiliation and the failed lawsuit, were furious. Not at her for cheating, but at her for getting caught so spectacularly and for losing her golden ticket. They had been counting on my income to elevate their own social standing. They apparently gave her an ultimatum. Get a job and start paying them rent or move out. She is now working as a hostess at a mid-range chain restaurant. Her father's car dealership business also took a hit. The story was so widely known in our community that it apparently affected his reputation. People don't like to buy cars from a man who raised his daughter to be a cheat. About 3 months ago, I was out for dinner with some friends at a new restaurant downtown. Halfway through our meal, I looked up and saw her. She was the hostess, the one who had seated us. She was wearing a cheap, ill-fitting uniform, her face a mask of bored resentment. Our eyes met across the restaurant. A flash of recognition, then pure, undiluted hatred. She immediately turned and disappeared into the kitchen. A few minutes later, another hostess came over to our table and told us that our original server had to leave due to a sudden illness. My friends, who all knew the story, just looked at me and started to laugh. My revenge was public and it was brutal. I took the most important night of her life, the one she had been planning for a year, and I turned it into a public referendum on her character. And she lost. She didn't just lose a fiancé. She lost her reputation, her financial security, her social circle, and her carefully constructed fantasy life. She wanted to have it all to keep me on the hook while she played the field. She ended up with nothing. I'm dating again. This time I'm taking it slow, but one thing is for sure, I'll be checking the synced devices.